My Own Story by Marie Joseph Charles. Copyright 2024 from Anthology of Love and Death, Volume 1. I had a dream about you, he said. I froze. I knew that voice. It was a ghost from 14 years ago, a voice I thought I would never hear again. Internally, I told myself to be brave. I steeled my nerves as I looked from the spot I had been mopping on the bookshop floor to the doorway. He looked the same. Perhaps there were a few gray hairs, and he was a little more round in the middle, but that face had hardly changed. His eyes, still young and blue as a sunny sky, looked straight into my heart. That heart quickened, and I felt a little faint at the realization that he was really there. It had been 14 years since we had said our final goodbye, and he still had some kind of power over me. "What are you doing here?" I leaned against the mop handle, in part to hold myself up, but also to appear more nonchalant than I felt. "I had a dream that Melissa invited you to dinner. It was so real. I had to see you." He stepped into the shop and let the door close behind him. "You look exactly how I imagined. Still beautiful." My heart did a strange flutter and my chest felt tight. "What are you doing here?" I repeated. He bit his lower lip and took a deep breath in through his nose before answering through an exhale. "Melissa's pregnant." I stared at him. "And?" "Did you hear me?" He stepped toward me. I moved the mop handle so it was between us as if it would shield me. He stopped. "I'm going to be a dad." "Congratulations." I was gripping the wooden handle so tightly my hands hurt. I could see his jaw grinding before he spoke. "That's all you can have to say?" "What did you expect me to say?" I drew up the little bit of courage I could muster. "I haven't seen you in a decade and a half. You've flown from the other side of the country to tell me your wife is pregnant." My voice shook a little less with each word as I spoke. "Why are you here?" I asked for a third time. "Melissa's not my wife," he said coldly. "How long have you lived together?" I asked. 7 years. "She's your wife." I matched the ice in his tone. "I love Melissa." He swallowed a lump in his throat. "But I'm in love with you." I stared at him, stunned. "Don't you miss me at all?" he asked. Still staring at him in total disbelief, I felt my head shaking in a slow but decisive no. "Miss you?" I squeaked. "Don't you remember what we had?" He stepped toward me again. I brandished the mop handle in front of me. "Yes," I said clearly. The anxiety of being in his presence suddenly lifted. "I do remember. And I remember the 8 years of therapy it took me to undo enough of what you had done for me to feel like a human being again. I still have regular visits to help with the PTSD." "PTSD," he scoffed. "From what?" "Do you remember my snow globe collection? Or how about my great-grandmother's measuring cups that magically leapt off the hooks on the wall when you were mad at me?" "Those were accidents," he reaffirmed. "Was it an accident when I missed my family reunion because you didn't fix my car like you had promised? Or how about when I lost all of my friends because when I would come home, you would berate me? You said me spending time with my friends and my family made you feel like you weren't enough for me." "Well, you said that I could talk to you when I went out, so I must be talking about you." "Hang on. You isolated me. You made everything my fault." "What was your fault?" "It was my fault we didn't have money. It was my fault my friends stopped talking to me. It was my fault when you broke my things. It was my fault when the house would be untidy." My fault, my fault, my fault. I was yelling now and suppressing my tears. I would not let him have the satisfaction of seeing me cry again. I did not isolate you. I always invited you out with my friends, and the house did get messy when you didn't clean. You knew I was too tired after work. Your friends are not my friends. Friends that I'd had since I was a teenager and lost. And what about the weekends? What about putting the dishes in the dishwasher instead of the sink? Mowing the lawn took 30 minutes. For fuck's sake, I broke my arm because you left laundry on the floor and I tripped over it and you blamed me for that too. I worked 2 jobs. I was tired too. He rolled his eyes. We went over all of this when we were together. And it never changed. And that's why we aren't together anymore and haven't spoken in 14 years. Us ending was a mistake, he said soothingly. His tone, his inflection, and even the expression in his eyes triggered something deep inside me, something visceral. It was all familiar. It was the man who would explain why I was being stupid and irrational when we argued. That soothing voice would call me silly and tell me to calm down. If I dared stand up for myself, the voice would change to a roar, and the soft eyes and passive expression would contort into something ugly and unholy. No, it wasn't. I looked him straight in the eye and spoke with clear definition. His face flickered like the image on an old TV set, but he regained his composure in the bat of an eye. You stood by when your father told me to flush my dreams down the toilet because I was going to fail. You said nothing when your friend called me a drain and a waste, I continued. Honey, if that happened, they were drunk. I scoffed. He knew they were drunk, as if that were any excuse for him not to stand up for me. And I don't remember exactly. And I don't remember that actually happening. Your imagination has you angry for no reason. He nodded as if that would end the argument. Yeah, I know you claim you don't remember. So either you're trying to gaslight me or you really have put it out of your mind. I'm betting it's the latter because you proved time and time again that things that were important to me, things that hurt me, weren't important to you. His face flickered again, and this time it seemed to take more effort to put it back together. You're just focusing on all the bad things. I pushed my lips together as hard as I could. I couldn't let the words in my brain fly out my mouth. I would not let him goad me into a screaming match. Not again. You know why I focus on the bad things? I narrowed my eyes at him. Because there was so much more bad than good. His visage was slipping again, and he wasn't bothering to put the mask back on. What about everything I did for you? A laugh that was more like a bark escaped me, and I saw his eyes darken. I said, that was the first thing you said to me when I told you I couldn't do this more. After everything I've done for you. Those were your exact words. Because our relationship wasn't about love. You were no more in love with me then than you are pretending to be now. Our relationship was a transaction. Every dinner, every trip to the store, every time you fixed my car was an investment. You were purchasing my loyalty and the right to control me. His face, I was sure, would be unrecognizable to almost anyone but me. His brows were pulled low over his eyes that were no longer bright blue, but a cold, slate color. His jaw was locked and malice oozed from his skin. And you were innocent? You didn't use me for anything, he growled. I was far from innocent, but I admitted to everything I had done. I admitted to taking on more work to avoid coming home. I admitted I stopped talking to you in the end because I just wanted to lock you out and for all of it to be over. I admitted I dragged out our misery because I didn't have the courage to cut you off like the diseased limb you were, and I apologized for all of it. So, you were emotionally abusive. Yes. But if I made you so miserable, why didn't you leave? If I was so abusive, why were you angry when I ended it instead of being relieved? He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. Because I was relieved. I was scared of surviving on my own, but I was relieved, and I never regretted it. The set in his jaw shifted. Yes, you do. No, I shook my head again. You need to go back to Texas and back to Melissa and your baby and never think of me again for the rest of your life, because I won't be thinking of you. And should we see each other when we're both dead and in hell, don't speak to me then either. He chewed on his tongue and finally broke eye contact. Melissa left me. I hadn't expected that confession, but I was far from surprised. Why? She said ours wasn't the kind of relationship she wanted to raise a child in. I came home from work and she was gone. That was 3 months ago. I nodded solemnly. I finally understood. So you lost control over your wife and thought you could come back and try to regain control over me. No. He was a good liar, but not this time. She's smart. She's putting that baby first. It's unfortunate that it took her 7 years of pregnancy, but then again, it took me 9. He charged for me, and I once again brandished the mop I had forgotten I was holding. You know, you called me selfish and manipulative, but it's not selfish for Melissa and me to want lives that we aren't afraid of or manipulative for us to escape. His jaw moved as he ground his molars. You need me. I haven't for more than 14 years. I think I'll be all right. He glared but didn't say anything else. He spun, hit the door hard with his open palm, and marched into the parking lot. I heard Tyler squeal and saw a black sedan, probably a rental, speed out onto the street. All of the strength that had held me together for that entire encounter suddenly fled my body. I finally released my grip on the mop handle and it crashed to the floor with me close behind. On my knees, I wrapped my arms around myself and pressed my forehead to the floor. I intermittently held my breath and gasped for air, trying to find myself. He had really been here, in my store. I had actually spoken to him. For years after we had ended, I had known that if he ever reappeared in my life, I would not be strong enough to resist him. I would have gladly wrapped myself in a cocoon of familiarity. At the time, it seemed preferable to struggling to make it on my own, fighting to find my identity and discovering my voice. But I had done it. Not only that, but I had just used that voice to say all of the things that needed to be said and to tell him to never come back. I lifted my head and looked at the books on the shelves in my shop. In their pages were the likes of Joan of Arc, Medea, Hester Prynne, and other amazing women who fought demons and dragons and men. I felt like one of them. I had fought my demon and become the heroine of my own story. Thank you for joining me for My Own Story by Maria Joseph Charles from Anthology of Love and Death, Volume 1. If you enjoyed this story, please feel free to follow me on Patreon, where new stories are posted as they are written. You can also follow me on standard social media through Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well. Thank you.